Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Eleanor. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. And let me start with something you better never forget. If you let pride walk you down the aisle, don't be surprised when regret follows you back home. I raised my grandson like he was my own son. I gave up retirement, rest, and sometimes even food, just to make sure he had everything he needed. But the day he got married, he slapped me. Not with just his hand, though yes, that happened. But with words, with looks, with a level of disrespect I wouldn't even expect from a stranger. And I never saw it coming. Not like this. "Why are you even here?" he snapped, his voice echoing through the gold-trimmed hall as guests gasped and whispered. "I told you to sit down and stay quiet. This is my wedding, not your stage." I was frozen. "Jacob, lower your voice," I said softly, trying not to cause a scene. But he laughed. Loud, sharp, cruel. "You just had to take the mic, didn't you? You just had to make it about you, like always." My hand was still trembling from holding the microphone. I hadn't even spoken yet. I'd just walked up after the toast from his best man, because I was told I could say a few words. "I wasn't going to say anything bad, sweetheart," I said, blinking back tears. "I was just going to bless your marriage. That's all." That's when he slapped the mic from my hand. Literally slapped it. It flew across the marble floor with a screech, landing between the champagne glasses and the edge of the wedding cake. A hush fell across the entire ballroom. I looked up at him. And for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize the boy I raised. He wasn't the sweet child who used to bring me wildflowers after school. He wasn't the young man who cried into my lap the day his mama walked out on him. This was someone else. Or maybe this is who he'd always been becoming. "You were supposed to stay out of this," he hissed, pointing a finger in my face. "Don't act like you've ever supported me. You hated Sophie from the beginning. You tried to poison me against her. You said she was using me. You said she was after my money. And I still believe that," I said, now standing up straighter, my voice calm but cutting through the air like a blade. "Because love doesn't isolate. Love doesn't make you abandon the people who raised you." That's when his fiancée, no, his new wife now, stepped in. Sophie. Tall. Blonde. Smiling like a fox in a henhouse. She placed a manicured hand on Jacob's chest like she was calming a dog. "She's just jealous, baby," she purred. "Some people can't handle not being the center of attention anymore." The crowd oohed. Like it was some reality TV episode. I could feel my heart pounding, my ears ringing. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I looked out at the crowd. Doctors. Lawyers. Neighbors. Strangers. People who didn't know the whole story. People who had no idea what I'd given up for that boy. "You want me to be quiet?" I asked slowly. "You want me to sit down? After everything I've done?" Jacob looked away. Sophie smiled smugly. And that was it. That was the moment. I reached down, picked up the mic from the floor, tapped it twice. "I'll sit down," I said, my voice carrying to the back of the hall. "But not until I tell the truth." And that's when the real story started. You think disrespect only shows up with fists? Think again. Sometimes, the most painful slap is silence. If you've ever felt thrown away by someone you raised, sacrificed for, or believed in, this story is for you. Keep watching. Because by the end of this wedding, everyone who clapped when she walked in was crying by the time I walked out. I wasn't always this broken woman standing at a wedding with a trembling mic and a bleeding heart. No. Once, I was strong. I was the backbone of a family that crumbled in my arms. When Jacob was just 6 years old, his mother, my daughter, left. packed a suitcase in the middle of the night and vanished like she'd never existed. And his father? He barely lasted another month before finding another woman and leaving the boy on my doorstep with nothing but a Spider-Man backpack and a note that said, "You're better at this than me." I raised Jacob with everything I had, and some things I didn't. I worked double shifts at the diner, then cleaned motel rooms on Sundays just to keep the lights on. Every time the landlord raised the rent, I skipped dinner for a week. Every Christmas, I wrapped second-hand toys in newspaper and told him, Santa got creative this year. And every time someone asked him, "Where's your mom?" he'd point at me with a big grin and say, "Right here." You see, to the world, I was just a grandmother. But to Jacob? I was his whole world. At least, that's what I believed. But kids grow. Time changes things. And sometimes, love isn't enough to keep a person grounded. When Jacob got a full scholarship to college, I cried like it was my own diploma. I packed his things, drove him across the state, and hugged him so tightly my arms ached for days. I told him, "Make me proud, baby." And he did, at first. Straight A's. Honors. Internships. He'd call me every Sunday like clockwork. "Miss you, Grandma," he'd say. "Can't wait to bring you to campus next semester." But then he met her. Sophie. The calls slowed. The visits stopped. And I started hearing things through friends of friends, that Sophie didn't want him talking to that old woman. That she said I was too clingy, too controlling, too poor. She didn't like that I asked questions. She didn't like that I knew how to read people, and saw straight through her designer smile. But I stayed quiet. I didn't want to lose him. I told myself, he's young. He's in love. He'll come around. But love that pulls you away from your roots isn't love. It's quicksand. You don't realize you're sinking until you're already under. Then came the engagement. No call. No visit. Just a photo on social media. Jacob in a tux. Sophie flashing the ring. My heart dropped. I didn't even know he was dating seriously, let alone planning a wedding. I called him that night. "Is this real?" I asked. He said yes. I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" He said, "I didn't think you'd approve." And I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But all I said was, "Of course I'll be there. I love you." And just like that, I became a guest at my own grandson's life. I was given an invitation like a pity gift. Told where to sit, what to wear, when to clap. I wasn't asked to help. Wasn't part of the planning. Wasn't even asked to bake, and I've made every one of his birthday cakes since he turned one. I sat in the back. During the rehearsal dinner. Watched her parents toast with expensive wine and call him their new golden boy. Watched Sophie drape herself over him like he was already bought and paid for. And through it all, I smiled. I stayed quiet. I told myself, wait for your moment. Say something kind. Just, bless him. But now, standing here, holding this microphone like it's the last thing keeping me alive, I realize silence was never kindness. It was fear. Fear of losing him completely. And yet, he already left me. Piece by piece. The boy I raised doesn't exist in that tuxedo. He's gone. And the man who slapped the mic from my hand, he's the one Sophie built. But what they both forgot, is that I'm still standing. And I still have a voice. And before I walk out of this wedding, before I give them their happily ever after, I will tell the truth. I stood there, with my heart thudding in my chest like a war drum, the mic still trembling in my hand. The room had gone quiet, the kind of silence that stings. I looked across the sea of faces, some smirking, some awkwardly sipping their champagne, some just confused. Jacob wouldn't even look at me. Sophie was whispering something into his ear, smirking like she had already won. And maybe she thought she had. Maybe they both thought this little scene had pushed me into submission. But what they didn't know, was that I hadn't waited 25 years to be silenced now. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice clear now, not shaking anymore, not scared. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eleanor. Jacob's grandmother. Or, at least, I used to be more than that. I used to be the person he ran to when his parents left him behind. I was the one who stayed up through the fevers, who taught him how to tie his tie, who stood on the sidelines at every football game because no one else showed up. So no, I won't sit down. And I sure as hell won't be quiet." There were gasps. A few hands covered mouths. A few people even started clapping, hesitant at first. But I wasn't done. I locked eyes with Jacob. "You remember when you were 8, and you cried because no one showed up to your school play? I was there. I left work early, still in my uniform, smelling like bacon grease and tired bones. I watched you play that tiny tree in the background and clapped like you were the star. Because to me, you were. You always were. But now I see. I was just a stepping stone to get you to this." I turned to Sophie. "You've done a fine job, I'll admit. He's polished now. Shiny on the outside. Dressed like a magazine ad. But baby girl, let me tell you something, polish doesn't hide rot. You think I'm bitter because you married him? No. I'm broken because you took the boy I raised and turned him into a stranger who thinks love is a weakness and loyalty is disposable. You didn't just marry him, you erased me from the story. But stories have chapters you can't delete, and I'm one you'll never fully understand." People were crying now. His childhood friend, that redhead from down the street, she was already dabbing her eyes. Even the DJ had stopped pretending to scroll on his phone. The room was listening. Really listening. "I don't want pity," I said. "I didn't come here to ruin anything. I came because I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could speak one last truth before this boy stepped into a life built on lies. I thought I could remind him of who he was. Who we were. But maybe he's made his choice. Maybe he's done remembering." Jacob finally looked at me, really looked. His jaw clenched. His eyes, glossy. But he didn't say a word. And that silence said more than I ever needed. "So I'll end with this," I said, my voice softer now. "To everyone here celebrating, I hope you never feel the kind of invisible I felt this year. I hope your love never comes with conditions. And I hope your loyalty never gets tested like mine has. Because if it does, you'll realize real love doesn't always come wrapped in roses and champagne. Sometimes it comes in sacrifice, silence, and standing alone in the back of a wedding." I set the microphone down on the table beside me. No dramatic drop. No final slap. Just quiet. And then I walked away. Step by step, past the stunned guests, past the wedding cake I never got to taste, past the decorations I wasn't asked to help hang. As I reached the double doors of the hall, I heard something. A chair scraping. Footsteps. A voice. "Grandma, wait." But I didn't stop. Not yet. Because after years of being his everything, for once, I needed him to come to me. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard the footsteps behind me. Fast. Heavy. Determined. For a moment, I hoped it was someone else. Anyone else. A stranger returning a lost purse. A server with my coat. But no, it was him. Jacob. The boy I raised. The man who had just humiliated me in front of everyone. The man who slapped a mic from my hand like I was an inconvenience, not the reason he ever stood upright in the first place. I didn't turn around. Not yet. I wasn't ready to look him in the eye again. "Grandma, stop," he said. His voice was breathless. Urgent. But not angry anymore. Just cracked. I kept walking. Not to be cruel. But because if I stopped too soon, I might break. And I couldn't afford to break again. Not after holding everything together for so many years, alone. But he caught up. grabbed my arm gently, like he used to do when he was scared. "Please," he said. "Just wait a second. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I didn't know what I was doing." That's the part that hurt the most, he didn't even realize. I turned to him slowly. The night air was cooler now. The lights from the ballroom behind us spilled across the pavement like melted gold. "You didn't know what you were doing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You slapped a microphone out of my hand like I was trash. You shouted at me like I was a stranger. And you let that girl, that woman, humiliate me while you stood there smiling. Jacob, you meant every second of it. Don't lie to me now." His face fell. For the first time all night, he looked like that little boy again. Ashamed. "I was just under pressure," he said, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to wipe something off. She was freaking out. Her parents were watching. Everyone was watching. "I didn't know what you were going to say and I cut him off." "You didn't know what I was going to say because you don't talk to me anymore. You stopped calling. You stopped asking how I was. I became someone you tolerated. And today? You made it clear I don't even belong in your life anymore. So let's not act like this was some accident. It was a choice. A long series of choices." He blinked fast. Swallowed hard. His voice cracked when he said, "You're right." And for a moment, the silence between us was louder than the music still playing inside. He looked down at the pavement. "I got lost, Grandma. Somewhere between trying to make her happy and trying to become something bigger than where I came from. I stopped being me. I thought if I made enough money, wore the right suits, kept my head down, it would mean I made it. But I didn't make anything. I just pushed away the only person who ever truly loved me." That's when my heart broke all over again. Not from anger this time, but from hearing the truth fall out of his mouth, finally. I stepped closer, touched his cheek. He flinched like he didn't deserve it. "You didn't have to become anyone else to be enough for me, Jacob," I said softly. "Anyone else to be enough for me, Jacob," I said softly. "You were enough the day you showed up on my porch with tears in your eyes and a heart full of hope. And you still are. But love doesn't survive in silence. And forgiveness doesn't come from speeches. It comes from change. So if you want me in your life again, show me." He nodded slowly. "I don't want to lose you. I don't care about the party or the money or the pictures. I want you to know that I'm sorry." "I hear you," I said. "But now I need to see you." And for the first time in years, Jacob reached out, and this time, not to silence me. He hugged me. Tight. Like he used to when he was little and scared of thunder. And in that parking lot, beneath the string lights and distant music, I held my grandson again. We stood in that parking lot for a long time. Just me and Jacob. No cameras. No cake. No speeches. Just realness. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel so far away. He felt reachable. Like the walls had finally cracked. But you see, forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's not something you flip on because someone says the right words. It's a door, and once it's been slammed shut, it doesn't open easy. I wasn't ready to walk back in just because he was finally standing at it. But I didn't walk away either. I just waited. Eventually, he pulled back, eyes red, hands still shaking. "Should I go back in?" he asked, like a child asking permission. I looked toward the ballroom, where laughter echoed, but it felt like a different world now. "That's your choice," I said gently. "But let me ask you this, do you even know who's in there with you? Or are you just playing a part in a show someone else is directing?" He didn't answer. He just looked down. And right then, the doors opened. Sophie stepped out, holding her dress like it was dipped in gold. And her smile dropped the moment she saw us. "There you are," she said sharply. No hug. No concern. Just annoyance. People are starting to ask questions. I told them you went to fix your hair. Why are you out here talking to her? That word, her. Like I was a stain. A shadow. A problem. Not the woman who raised her husband. Jacob didn't say anything at first. Just looked at her. Really looked. Like maybe for the first time, he was seeing her without the filter of infatuation. We were talking, he said calmly. I needed a minute. Sophie crossed her arms. A minute? You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Are you really going to let this ruin our day? I stepped back. Let them have their moment. But my heart pounded, waiting. This was it. His test. His fork in the road. She turned to me. Look, I get it. You're emotional. You wanted attention. But this isn't about you, okay? He's my husband now. So if you really love him, you'll stay out of the way. Her voice was sweet, syrupy, poisonous. She reached for Jacob's arm. Come inside, baby. But he didn't move. His voice, when it came, was quiet, but sharp. She's not staying out of the way. She's been the way. My whole life. Sophie blinked. Excuse me? You heard me, he said. You think you're the only one who's ever mattered to me? My grandma gave up her life for me. And all she asked for in return was to be treated like she existed. Today, you made her feel invisible. And I let you. He looked at me now. But no more. He turned back to her. If you can't accept her, you don't accept me. Because she is me. She made me. And if that's a problem, then maybe this whole thing was a mistake. Sophie's mouth fell open. And for once, she had nothing to say. She looked around, like someone might swoop in and save her from the fallout. But no one did. No parents. No planners. Just silence. Then, with a scoff and a toss of her expensive hair, she spun on her heel and stormed back inside, heels clicking like gunshots against the concrete. Jacob didn't chase her. He just stood still, breathing deep like he'd finally come up for air after drowning for too long. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just stepped beside him and said, you still have time to write a better ending than this. He smiled a little. Sad. Honest. If you'll help me. I nodded. I always have. I just needed you to remember. Later that night, he came back to my little house, the one he grew up in. He sat at the same kitchen table where I used to place his cereal and homework. No tux. No cameras. No crowd. Just the boy I raised, eating leftovers with me and asking, can I start over? And the truth is, that's the moment the real wedding happened. Not the one with champagne flutes and shallow speeches. But the one where family was restored. Where truth replaced silence. Where pride gave way to love. It didn't come easy. But it came. People will forget your sacrifices. They'll rewrite the story. They'll even slap the mic out of your hand. But never let the world convince you that your voice doesn't matter. Speak it, even if it shakes. Speak it, even if it's the last thing you do. Because when the truth is finally heard, it can heal what pride tried to destroy.